You heard the word more last week than perhaps any time in the past 25 years. But what does it really mean? And that's an understatement. Good evening again, and thanks for staying with us for a WCCO News Special, Operation Flood Relief, Neighbors Helping Neighbors. I'm Amy Marsalis.
And I'm Brad Good. In the next half hour, we'll bring you comprehensive coverage of Minnesota's flooding, where it's been, where it's going, and who's been left in its wake.
I'm Jonathan Elias in Hastings, where one of the major routes of commerce has been shut down to all barges. I'll have the story coming up.
Along the Minnesota River, where the worst appears to be over, but now the cleanup begins.
And I'm meteorologist Rebecca Coles in St. Paul, where the river has crested early and the water has begun to recede. It's been 10 days of hardship in southeastern Minnesota, and thousands of lives have been changed in 1 week's time.
Here's what we ended up with overnight. Heaviest rains out around Marshall in Lyon County. Actually saw reports of well over 6
This is how 9 inches of rain translates into Marshall. About 2 feet of water in the low-lying areas. And this is the main road here for this mobile home park. And as you can see, it's become a ghost town because every resident here was forced out. They had to seek refuge in a nearby shelter.
It is a double shot for Marshall. Just 6 weeks after heavy rains left the town underwater, severe weather soaks southern Minnesota and the Redwood River moves over its banks. Closed roads, submerged fields, abandoned homes, pictures that will become all too familiar over the next 10 days.
Oh, Lord.
Governor Carlson assesses the damage as the water starts receding from Marshall, starting a 400-mile journey, a journey that will touch the lives of thousands of Minnesotans.
We have some more rain moving into the western part of the state right now, and it is producing some heavy downpours, at least.
You can barely see it, but there is a house just beyond the trees right off of Highway 22 here that was closed over the weekend. The people did manage to get some things out of their home. No telling when they'll be able to go back.
Now it's the Minnesota River's turn to take center stage. Highway 169, Highway 212, Highway 41, all closed. The impact of floods is felt by more and more Minnesotans. Closed bridges over the Minnesota River means miles of traffic jams at remaining crossings. The devastation is not limited to Minnesota, though. The same heavy rains have caused a spillway to collapse on the Black River in Wisconsin. Many families and businesses are shocked to learn they have lost everything. But saving everything can be just as emotional. Just ask Ken Weilige of Mankato.
I just feel good that we saved the place, you know. It was scary.
Weilige has lived in this house for 18 years. He put all his faith into the hastily built dirt and sand dike surrounding his home. But then again, he had no choice.
The guys just kept coming, and they wouldn't stop. They worked till daybreak, till dark. And it's better now. It's better.
Let's make sure that people stay home, stay put, watch the events as they're covered by the news media, and please stay out of the area.
Chaska, late this afternoon, a drama was playing out. Rescuers were trying to reach 2 young people swept into the river. One girl was rescued very quickly. A 15-year-old boy was not and had to hang on to trees in the rising water.
All week long, officials have been warning about the dangers of the floodwaters, but it took someone like David Syke to drive that point home. Trapped for 3 hours, clinging to a tree after he and a friend tried biking through the shallow floodwaters. Water rushing so strongly, rescue workers can barely stand. Finally, a boat arrives and the rescue is made. Pictures and stories like these alert the towns and cities downstream to what lies ahead.
As the water rises and rises, parts of St. Paul are taking on the air of a city under siege.
But some towns do not have the resources of St. Paul. They rely on the help of neighbors and of friends. Towns like Chaska, Carver, and Newport. People take time off from work or from summer vacation to help save their town. Their names might not be known to the people whose homes and businesses they save, but their efforts do not go unnoticed, especially by people like Dale Diedrich. Closed roads mean his Chaska restaurant will lose weeks of business and thousands of dollars. But for that, he would like to thank others.
When you think of what this city has done and how it's prepared, they've just done excellent job. I mean, the emergency services, the fire department, police, county police, the city staff, you can't say enough good about it. They've kept us dry, so, which wasn't the case in '65.
Major east-west routes along both sides of the river in the metro area are closed or threatened.
The three rivers that run in and around the Twin Cities continue to rise, and they haven't even reached their crest yet.
The good news is for those people in the St. Paul area is that the crest will be lower than they originally thought.
And it happens just 1 hour later, 7 p.m. Saturday. The Mississippi River crests in St. Paul, 5 feet 2.5 inches above flood stage, below the great floods of 1965 and 69, but still enough to submerge Holman Field, make a lake out of Harriet Island, and damage some of St. Paul's businesses. The water is receding now, but the danger is not over. Along the St. Croix, officials anxiously watch a submerged levee holding back raw sewage. And along the Minnesota and Mississippi rivers, high water will stick around for weeks, remaining hazardous for boaters and sightseers, and frustrating for those who just want to dry out, clean up, and forget about the last 10 days. Now, coming up in just a few minutes, I'm going to take you through the entire process of a flood, and also I'm going to introduce you to a man who's been very busy trying to keep us safe.
All right, Rebecca, thanks for that summary, and what a week it has been. Of course, the impact of the floodwaters will be felt for weeks to come. Well, as the flooding heads downstream, thousands of people will need help getting their heads above water.
We hope that giving spirit continues as it has all week, and you can help too. We've set up a fund in conjunction with the Red Cross called Operation Flood Relief. If you would like to contribute, please send donations to WCCO Television, 90 South 11th Street in Minneapolis, 55403. Please stay with us as Operation Flood Relief continues, where Hastings waits for the water and others begin the task of getting rid of it.
The Minnesota State Lottery has a game for you. So play your favorite or try a new one. There are still millions in prizes you could win. So keep on playing.
One more time.
At $18,995, the Oldsmobile 88 Special Edition might be one of the best values on the Continental landmass today. Oh, things like anti-lock brakes, driver's side airbag, tilt wheel, cruise control, air, power windows and locks, stereo cassette, V6, front wheel drive. Gee, and I was just getting warmed up. It's your money.
Summer is here, and that means it's time for two Minnesota favorites, hot eats, cool treats from Dairy Queen and big hits from the Twins. Now Dairy Queen has teamed up with Channel 4 for a double play getaway to Chicago. Just fill out a postcard at a participating Dairy Queen store and mail it to WCCO. Then watch for your name during select Twins broadcasts in July. You'll have 4 minutes to call in and win a weekend trip to see the Twins take on the White Sox. Watch and win in the double play getaway from Dairy Queen and Channel 4.
Our graphic showed flooding is causing special problems for the state's grain shippers.
And those problems include locks and dams that are closed from Hastings all the way south to St. Louis. Now, our Jonathan Elias joins us live from Hastings with late but good news that water at lock station number 2 doesn't appear to be rising anymore. Jonathan?
Very good news indeed, Brad. As a matter of fact, they had said that the water had crested on the Mississippi upriver. Well, downriver, let me show you something. If you could, Dave, take a look over there. That's a water level. It's at 28 feet. If you can see, it says 28, 29, and 30. It's at 28 feet. It has not moved from that position from early this morning. Folks here now believe that the water here has crested, and they're just waiting for it to recede. And we have some video to show you what's going on along the banks of Hastings here near the Lock and Dam station. And a lot of people were just out enjoying the sun, but they did notice that something was missing along the Mississippi River. What was missing are the barges. No barges have been through here since Thursday. This is a huge corridor for commerce, one of the largest in the country. And when we talked to one of the Lock and Dam's superintendents, he said this about what's going on.
All the shipping has come to a standstill here since Thursday, and the whole Mississippi and the St. Croix is a no-wake zone until further notice.
Why?
Why? Because it'll cause too much shoreline damage.
Now, what we're talking about when we talk about shoreline damage is when a barge goes down, a lot of water behind it will flow through. Water now in some points down south have water going into people's basements. If a barge went through, it would go to the first story in some cases, so it is a lot of damage. But we need to address this fact. A lot of people are out of work, and they will be until the water recedes. People who work grain elevators. This is a huge corridor, as I said, of commerce. On an average day, they'll have 12 barges go through here, about 264,000 tons of goods, and every day that no barge goes through here, it's $90,000. That is just for the barges themselves. That is not for how much it costs grain operators to stay off the job and everyone's downtime. That's a lot of money, and it will be affected for a long time to come. As a matter of fact, I have the gates that are shut. Gate 3, 10, 11, 13 will be shut. 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19 will be shut. The problem stretches far south as Dubuque, Iowa, and what happens is the gates behind me, as you see, the water goes up over them. It's impossible to navigate a barge through, so they don't. They close the gate. And right now where I'm standing, we're about 1.8 feet away from this place being closed, but like I've said, the water is holding steady. It has not gone up. It has not gone down. Everyone here believes the crest has occurred, and they're waiting for it to recede. That's the very latest. We'll go back to you, Brad.
Jonathan, what happens? I mean, this sounds like it would be quite a log jam. If these barges just simply can't get through, are they being told now to just stay where they are at whatever area they are throughout the region and to not even load up and just sit there until further notice?
We are getting word late tonight that out of Dubuque, Iowa, which is the farthest point south that we know, they have backups. There are problems as far as people not being able to get the barges anywhere. They are telling them just to pull over and stay put. And as you might imagine, it's creating quite a logjam of these barges, and they're not that easy to navigate. So when they pull over, they have to strap them down with a tow, and they all have to wait. And I've been told it could be anywhere from a week to 10 days, but again, that's barring any heavy rainfalls. So they can just keep their fingers crossed that they'll have more days like today.
Okay, Jonathan, obviously a large economic impact as well there. Thank you, Jonathan.
Well, now we want to show you a different perspective of what a flood looks like. We have time-lapse photography from St. Paul. Now, this is how the water enveloped Harriet Island between Thursday and today. Our vantage point is from the Wabasha Bridge. You're looking upstream, of course. Now, between Thursday and Friday, there is a dramatic increase in the water lapping over Harriet Island. Now, the crest came last night. You can barely see dry land. Then finally today, as we reach today's date, the waters began to back off, and you can see them slowly receding. That's the time-lapse photography that gives us that unique perspective. Now, the water has receded enough in St. Paul for Rebecca Coles to report from Riverside. She joins us from Harriet Island. And Rebecca, I know you were out there all week reporting on the flooding conditions. How does it look to you tonight?
Well, actually, Harriet Island's still quite submerged and will be that way for at least next week. We started out across the banks here on the other side of the river. That is still underwater. Then we went to the bluff and we watched Holman Field as it was swallowed by the water. That remains the same. And of course, we're on the drier area here at Harriet Island. And a lot of people have been asking me, are we out of the woods? Well, temporarily, yes, we are. Permanently, no, we're not. We never are. In fact, with the right kind of ingredients, it can start up all over again. The recipe begins here. A big storm brews, clouds build, and rain begins. The ground absorbs what it can, but there comes a point when it can hold no more. And if it continues to rain heavily, the stage is set for flooding.
Since last fall, we've been in a rather wet regime. We've had above normal precipitation, and we've had an abundance of soil moisture over the past, I imagine, 6 to 9 months.
The recent heavy rains only added to the problem, forcing forecasters from the River Forecast Center to begin their work. Calculations are worked, rainfall amounts are tabulated, programs are run, and forecasts are made. And in this case, we were warned of high water headed our way. And like clockwork, it came. It started in streams and tributaries, which dumped into the headwaters of the Minnesota River. Continuous rains over southern Minnesota only aggravated the situation, adding more water. Eventually, a wall of water is formed. This is what we call the crest. It is in this area and everything downstream that is of most concern, the area where the water reaches its highest level. As the crest gets closer, the river begins to rise. Here's a profile of what it looks like. The level which the river normally runs is right here. The flood stage is the area where the water becomes level with the river's banks. Anything above this is considered above the flood stage.
The definition of flood stage is where the water comes out over the banks of the river and we're starting to do damage.
Once the river reaches its crest, the recession of the water begins, a process that can take anywhere from a few days to several weeks, depending on the weather. And when all is said and done, the assessments begin in all departments.
Each flood has its own characteristics. What we will do with this flood, we'll go back and we'll reassess our model to see if there's any glitches in it, and hopefully that'll prepare us when we get the next one. There's always going to be a next one.
And I guess that's a scary thing. There's always going to be a next one. We know that's going to happen. Joining me now is Bob Post from the Army Corps of Engineers. And I guess the first question is, you guys get about a week to prepare. Now, that doesn't seem like a long time, but what were you able to do in that week to prepare for this flood?
Well, for many areas, we were able to do quite a few things. But for some of the headwaters areas, it makes it very difficult to be prepared and on time. We were providing a lot of opportunities for protection and for assistance to communities along the Minnesota River. St. Peter, we helped them build a dike. We had people helping Carver raise some of their levees so that they were able to cope with the floodwaters. And we were on the scene at Chaska, helping Chaska city officials deal with some seepage in other areas. And we helped Henderson do some closures at their community.
Obviously, history is a good teacher. What kind of valuable lessons have you learned from the floods in the 60s that helped prepare you for the floods of '93?
Well, the floods in the 65 helped us to design some of the permanent flood protection projects that we now have at Mankato, St. Paul, Henderson, and South St. Paul. They helped us to make sure that we had the right levels so that we would have good protection for those communities. And all told, I understand that about $70 million worth of damages were prevented by those 4 projects alone, not to mention some of the temporary projects that we had.
Great. Well, on behalf of all Minnesotans, I know everybody would like to extend their thanks to you, because without your hard work and effort, this situation could have been much worse. And Amy and Brad, I guess I also have to take this time to thank the folks at the River Forecasting Center who have been working around the clock to keep us all informed and allowed us all to prepare appropriately. And if they weren't around, who knows what kind of loss, human and property loss, we would have seen as a result.
That's right, Rebecca. A lot of people are really appreciated tonight for all their hard work. A lot of people working 18-hour days out there in all the communities. Thanks a lot, Rebecca, and to Bob Post from the Army Corps of Engineers. Now, we have this information for people near flooded rivers who use well water. State officials urge well users to stop using water until it can be tested for contaminants. The State Health Department will have test kits available next week. And we'll be back in just a moment, where neighbors are helping neighbors.
Look what's in the ice cream section.
Total indulgence, zero guilt. Total indulgence, zero guilt.
Weight Watchers chocolatey caramel nut bars. Low-fat ice cream, all gooey with caramel and peanuts, too. One totally cool taste in the ice cream section from Weight Watchers.
Total indulgence, zero guilt.
There's only one way I know to beat Toyota gas mileage.
I'm a believer.
Quality, reliability, and more miles to the gallon are just a few of the reasons to believe in Toyota.
No doubt in my mind.
And if that doesn't make you a believer, how about a Camry lease for just $289 a month? That's $289 for the best car built in the U.S.
More car for less made me a believer.
I'm in love. I'm a believer.
See your Toyota dealer today for Camry and 12 other models that'll make you a believer.
It's not just another mint mouthwash. It fights black. And it fights the gum infection, gingivitis. It's Cool Mint Listerine Antiseptic. It fights bad breath with an exhilarating, cool, minty taste. No, it's not just another mint mouthwash. Cool Mint Listerine works like Listerine, tastes like Cool Mint.
Welcome back to our half-hour special on flood relief this last week to 10 days. The name of our program tonight is Neighbors Helping Neighbors. That's just what is about to happen in towns we reported on about a week ago. The first places hit with Minnesota River flooding. And our Bill Hudson is in Chaska with that story. Bill, these cleanup efforts must desperately need any and all helping hands at this point.
Certainly, Brad, as many, if not more, than when these communities were first preparing for the floodwaters. Soon all those sandbags will need to be carried away, and a lot of wet basements will have to be dried up. Now, many people are going to be volunteering, helping neighbors in need. Much of the Minnesota River still appears more like a lake, but for flood victims in St. Peter, the worst is over. Time for cleanup to begin. Today, friends helped Craig Nielsen recover blacktopping equipment so he can get back to work.
Well, we just got to clean everything up and get back to work.
The river has dropped nearly 3 feet from its crest. The dike that Bob Geltner's crews built stood the test.
We put out a call for volunteers, and jeepers, it was just overwhelming. The example, Waseca Fire Department volunteered, and Jaysville Fire Department. I mean, they come from all over, so it really makes you feel good.
At the St. Peter Glassworks, family and friends help salvage what floats. It still takes a boat to get around. They figure it will still be a couple of weeks before full-scale cleanup begins. Help is already being offered.
We've already been offered a pressure washer from friends. It said that we can use that. Lee's got about 10 employees, so everybody's been pitching in helping.
And it was friends that built this dike around Shirley Kennedy's home. Without, her basement would surely have taken on more water. This week, those friends will be back to tear the dike down.
Oh, we had about 50 people that came down here and volunteered. Everybody came here and volunteered and stuff like that. And then one of the grocery stores sent down lunch and everything. So there's community spirit around here.
Now, Brad, we were surprised to see the lack of action in cleanup today. They say that's because the water really has to drop all the way down and allow the basements to expose the floor so that they can get in there and really start sweeping out mud and so forth, Brad.
Bill, I know we've been talking all week that many people within communities have been coming together and helping and putting in very long days and working into the night, but are any of these communities going to be getting any help in the weeks to come from any outside agencies or any people from the outside?
Certainly tomorrow, the American Red Cross plans on setting up its relief centers. One of those will be in St. Peter. We're told another one will be in Mankato to serve 6 counties around the St. Peter area. That's at 1 o'clock. It is supposed to open its doors at the Tomlinson Hall at St. Peter State Hospital. Now, they say there will be available disaster assistance, so forth, like vouchers to replace furniture items and clothing and food and so forth. Also, they will have some cleanup kits, some donated cleanup kits, including cleanup chemicals and so forth that have been donated.
Bill Hudson in Chaska tonight. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Well, if you want to help neighbors in need, please send donations to WCCO. The Red Cross can use your financial help. And we have the address for Operation Flood Relief. There it is, WCCO TV, 90 South 11th in Minneapolis. We'll be right back.
The creaking of leather and the whistling wind were my only companions as I rode on against all odds of ever seeing home again. Because in the Badlands, a man could be gone for a day or forever, and it wasn't always up to him which. I could sense the posse closing in as I spurred my horse on. I was innocent, but that didn't seem to matter. I was too young to die, not like this, swinging under the twisted limb of some lonely cottonwood. Visions of my wife and children filled my head. The thunder of angry hoofs rumbled close behind. Suddenly, cresting the top of the last divide, the pines opened, and there in the distance, it looked like I was gonna make it. I was glad to be alive. But was it all a dream? Nah. It was just my first trail ride in North Dakota's Badlands. Or was it?
Laura Peters has lived in 7 different houses, had 4 jobs, changed husbands twice, but she's been going to the same CarX for 15 years.
Hey, you find something good, you stick with it.
At CarX, we show you what's wrong and what's right. We only fix what needs fixing. So don't go just anywhere for brake or exhaust repairs. Go to the place that people go back to.
I'd go back.
I'd go back.
I'd go back to CarX.
Rattle, rattle, thunder, clatter, boom, boom, boom. Don't worry, call the CarX man.
Well, Brad and I were both out covering the flood this week, and there were so many images like this one that really stick in your mind. That one was for me as we drove to St. Peter last Monday, heading south on 169. First, photographer Brad Early and I noticed the house with water up to the first floor, then the rowboat anchored next to the front door, and when we got closer, we saw a cat sitting in the boat. Doug Westfall and one of his 6 children were home at the time, trying to move their belongings to the second floor as the waters just kept rising. And Doug came out and took the time to talk to us. And I think for me, what impressed me the most about the flood coverage was how people like Doug Westfall remained optimistic and just hung in there until the worst was over.
They're just so resilient. It's incredible. People just stay tough and they work their way through it. You know, for me, the most memorable pictures this week were when I was in Newport covering flood preparations, and we can see it in the video wall if we can take the tape. Now, this is what I saw when I was out there, and everywhere I looked, residents were just lending, obviously, more than a hand, working together around the clock to build their dike. Now, several hundred residents helped move highway dividers in on top of their dike and hauled truckloads of sandbags on their backs. More than 15,000 sandbags were hauled in by hand to secure that dike. In less than 2 days, their untiring efforts built up this quarter-mile long dike. And I'll tell you, their teamwork has saved more than 100 homes along the Mississippi River. And I spoke with Newport Mayor Jerry Fritz tonight on the phone just a short time ago, and he is happy to report that their flood wall held back the waters and all those homeowners are in good shape, he said. And, you know, it was interesting to me what really summed it up when I asked one of the city workers if all this volunteer help from the community surprised him. He simply said, no, this is Minnesota. And I think that pretty much says it all. People will just pitch in and help their neighbor.
That's the truth. Well, thank you for staying with us tonight for our special report. As we leave you, a tranquil scene. The city of St. Paul from the air this evening. After a week of stressful anticipation, the city is calm. The big river flows, and the people go on with their lives as if nothing ever happened. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
I'm batting 1,000 with Toyota. This is my 3rd one.
I'm a believer.
From Tercel to Camry, Toyota has given 14 million Toyota owners a lot to believe in.
No doubt in my mind.
Over 35 years and 14 million vehicles sold. That's a lot of Toyota believers.
I got a great deal, and now I can take these animals to the zoo.
I'm in love. I'm a believer.
See your Toyota dealer today. He's got dozens of ways to make a believer out of you.
You're watching today's WCCO television.